Well, welcome everyone. I'm so glad to see such a full auditorium, so the message got out. We are going to be reconvening from the August 12th meeting today and to discuss a few items of importance. Can I get a roll call, please?
Mayor Harker?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Cooper?
Here.
Commissioner Gillikin?
Here.
Commissioner Oliver?
Here.
Commissioner Spiegler? Here. Commissioner LaPiccolo?
We're checking on him, and I think he's on his way. Okay, thank you very much. And can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Got a motion on the floor. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. So we have a few items for review and discussion. Once again, this is an extension of our August 12th meeting. Today's meeting is looking a lot different based on the votes that were made on Monday. So we're going to be able to clean up some of those actions that were taken and to start that discussion of moving to the next steps. The first item is the lease extension with the Beaufort Waterfront Enterprise. Early, would like to recognize anybody?
Either town attorney or town clerk.
You have it to present. Okay. Mayor, one of the actions Monday night was to request an extension of the current lease with Beaufort Waterfront Enterprises. Beaufort Waterfront Enterprises has agreed to that. We have a simple lease extension that I believe was circulated to the board perhaps. And we also have a memorandum which you customarily record in the register of deeds. All it does is extend the term 1 year. There's no change in anything else. So I would like to ask for the board's approval to authorize the execution and delivery of the lease extension documents.
Okay, very
I'll
good.
go ahead and make a motion that we move forward with the extension of the Beaufort Waterfront Enterprise.
Okay, we've got a motion on the floor. Any discussion before we call for the question?
Question.
Yes.
I believe the motion to do that was amended last time to include also the island ferry services and anybody else who had a direct. Is that the motion that is that what we're doing?
This.
Commissioner Oliver, we have a lease with the ferry service through the end of the year. I suggested to staff by email yesterday, we could take that lease, amend it and restate it to go through the end of 2025 and bring that back to the board to execute. I just didn't get to it this week, but we can have it on the work session agenda if you would like.
I'm fine with that. I just want to make sure that we're using the amended motion.
And I did not speak to the operator, but I believe your staff did, and they definitely want us to do that. We're very appreciative of the opportunity,
Yes,
so I'll share that with them.
That's correct.
Okay, very good. So we're going to continue with the motion that's on the table to extend the lease with Beaufort Waterfront Enterprise. Any further questions? Welcome, John.
Thank you.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed have the same right. Now we're going to talk about the formal termination letter for the letter of intent.
So again, I'll ask town attorney to take the lead on that one.
I'm glad I came today.
We need to.
Sure.
Again, in light of the board's action Monday night, most of these items are just implementing the board's decision. This is a formal transmittal / letter terminating the LOI that we've had in place since the early summer, I believe. As with the lease extension, I suggest that the board approve the execution and transmittal of this letter, and we'll probably get it out today.
Mayor, could we have Elizabeth to maybe read this so that the citizens out there will know exactly what we sent it to them?
It's projected on the screen, Commissioner.
Yeah, but my eyes, I'm right on top of it.
I'll be more than happy to read the letter.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, please accept this correspondence as a notice of termination by the town of Beaufort, in parentheses, town, of the letter of intent between Safe Harbor Marinas LLC, in parentheses, Safe Harbor, and town. As you are aware, the LOI concerned the proposed lease by town to Safe Harbor of town's waterfront docks, among other things. For ease of reference, a copy of the LOI is attached. At the August 12th, 2024 regular meeting, meeting of Town's Board of Commissioners, the Board of Commissioners took action to terminate the LOI. Accordingly, Town hereby terminates the LOI and all negotiations and/or discussions between Town and Safe Harbor concerning the LOI and the transactions contemplated thereunder. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Respectfully submitted, Sharon E. Harker, Mayor of the Town of Beaufort.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. So is there any further discussion about the termination of letter of intent between the town and Safe Harbor?
No.
Okay. I just need a motion to go ahead and authorize the mayor to sign this letter so it can be executed.
I make a motion to authorize Mayor Harker to sign this letter.
Thank you very much. We've got a motion on the floor. Any further questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed have the same right. I'll go ahead and sign that and give this to you a little bit later, Elizabeth. The next topic is the status of the purchase of the Stevens property, which is 611 Front Street. Council wanted to know if with the motion, the way it was phrased, if there was going to be any change in the status or the intended use of the property, and wanted to kind of get some clarification from that point on it. Did I phrase that correctly?
Yes, ma'am. As the board's aware, we have entered into a purchase contract for this property. Part of the property is what I would call the gap on Taylor's Creek and the boardwalk, because the Stevens property, I mean, it's their property, but it also includes the property and structures north of Front Street. We have paid an earnest money deposit. We're entitled to get that back if we terminate on or before the due diligence date, which I believe is at the end of September or mid-October, without any reason. We can walk away if we want to. If we want to continue with the purchase, so be it. After the due diligence date, we are not entitled to receive our earnest money back. So I suggested to the mayor that we bring this before the board and see if there's any change in the town's intent on this contract.
Okay. Well, with that in mind, we'll go around and ask commissioners if they have any comments. We'll start with Commissioner Spiegler.
No comments.
Thank you. Commissioner Oliver.
I have no comments.
Thank you. Commissioner Cooper.
No comment.
Thank you. Commissioner Gilligan.
I'm inclined to continue with the purchase.
Okay. And Commissioner Lopiccolo.
Yeah, also inclined to continue. The town has, over the years, made the efforts to try to secure the entire waterfront, and I think this is no different. I think this is a good direction for the community.
Okay.
Mayor, the board would only need to take action to affirmatively terminate it. If the board
Okay.
wants to keep the contract in place and proceed, we need no board action today.
Okay. So we just kind of clarify that and we can move forward with the current plan. Thank you. Now we're going to move on to number 4, which is the waterfront improvement project steps moving forward. After Monday's night meeting, the vote that took place seemed to be well received by the community. I was able to attend the community forum yesterday, along with Commissioner Oliver and Commissioner Gilligan, and I think we had a really good, constructive conversation, and it was a good meeting. But a lot of concerns were still about what are the next steps moving forward? Where are we going to go from there? And so, although we have a lease that's been extended with the current operator for an additional 12 months, that's nice, but the work still needs to be done. It's a short period of time, so we need to act with great haste. At the meeting, I also talked about a timeline that was going, is that still up? Is that up on the website, Rachel's timeline? Where's Rachel?
She's in the back.
She's putting it up after this meeting.
Okay, she's putting it up now? Okay.
After this meeting, yes, ma'am.
Alrighty, so I've discussed a timeline that would allow for us to take a look at the 6 years of Beaufort waterfront improvement project, starting back in 2018. And this timeline will include all of the meetings and the links and the minutes for everybody to review. Although we're going to be moving forward, it's great to know timeline-wise where we came from and how we got to where we are today. So it's chock full of great information, and it will be posted on our town website after this meeting. We will continue to add to that timeline until this project comes to fruition so that we can continue to have that transparency. Want you to continue to go to that document and take a look at that. So I want to thank the staff for putting that together. It was a lot of work to do, and I hope you will enjoy reading it. So as the mayor, I have the authority of creating working committees, and after hearing about where we are needing to go in our next steps, and based on the conversations that I've had with commissioners and citizens, I would like to introduce a new working committee, and it's going to be called the Beaufort Waterfront Operations and Finance Committee. This committee will review the recommendations from the Harbor and Waterway Advisory Committee, assess the feasibility and practicality of these recommendations, and update the vision and objectives to align with our financial goals and expectations for the docks. When the mayor creates these committees, I have the opportunity of appointing 2 commissioners to serve on this committee. There will be a chair and there will be a vice chair. And I'm proposing, if they accept the challenge, to appoint Commissioner Spiegler as the chair of this committee and Commissioner Gilligan as the vice chair of this committee. Do you accept this challenge?
Mayor Harker, I want to say thank you, and yes, I enthusiastically accept this role as chair of the new committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Gilligan, do you accept the charge?
I do, absolutely, 200%, and it'll be a great committee, and looking forward to digging in.
Okay. Well, this committee, so it's been a while since I've had to do all-nighters. And since Monday's meeting, I've been running like you would not believe. But I've had an opportunity to create a committee structure that I would like to read to you. As you know, I've named the committee the Beaufort Waterfront Operations and Finance Committee. The committee's task is to review, once again, the recommendations of the Harbor and Waterways. I suggest that this committee consists of, thank you very much, anywhere between 8 to 10 members, and I would encourage the chair and the vice chair to get feedback on who those members will be to serve on this committee. I'm looking for a representative from the Harbor and Waterways Committee that's going to provide that historic context. We're going to be looking for a finance expert and with experience in municipal operations. I suggest First Tryon be able to lead on that. There are financial advisors. We have legal advisors. I'm saying that's optional, but highly recommended, and our attorney with the green tie comes to mind. Community stakeholders should be of a mix of residents, business owners. I would like to see this board be as diverse as possible. Looking for grant and funding specialists, risk management and insurance experts. These meetings should be held monthly with additional meetings as necessary. They are all open to the public. They can be held here at the train depot if space is allowed. It could also be held virtual, and a quorum is the majority of the board. The objectives and the responsibilities are described as the following. To develop the objectives that describe the vision of the docks by answering the following questions. What character do we want the harbor and docks to have? How do we reconcile the character we want with differences in revenues that can result from a list of things? Attracting more super and mega yachts, the substantial revenue possible, an increase in revenue from fueling large vessels, serving as a fueling depot with in-slip fueling, serving as a public gas stop. What is the balance between the revenue and the character of the marina and docks we are willing to accept? And are we willing to change the viewscape to Taylor's Creek and the Rachel Carson by improving the docks to optimize the number of large yachts we can accommodate? So these are some of the questions we could answer. There's an infrastructure assessment that's going to identify and prioritize necessary improvements on the waterfront and land-based areas. Focus on fuel supply, boardwalk repairs, replacement, and other critical infrastructure. An estimated cost and timeline for these improvements. Financial viability analysis, this is to identify and prioritize necessary improvements on the waterfront and land-based areas. Focus on fuel supply, boardwalk replacement, and other critical infrastructures. Once again, summarizing the cost of the Harbor and Waterways Advisory Committee report and conduct during discussions, and work that was conducted during discussion of safe harbor mariners. Although we're not entering into an agreement, I think there was a lot of work that came from that we can use moving forward. Provide a timeline and prioritize these improvements in order in which they should occur and according to construction logistics. Evaluate potential revenue streams and operational cost. The recommendation for reviews, thoroughly review recommendations provided by the Harbor and Waterways Committee. Determine the feasibility, practicality of these recommendations, and develop an action plan based on these recommendations. Staffing and operation, want to evaluate current staffing needs and projects' future requirements. Consider the potential for hiring specialized staff to manage operations. Funding and grants. Explore funding mechanisms, including grants, government infrastructure money. Engage with state and federal agencies for infrastructure support, and I'll be more than happy to help with that. Prepare grant application and necessary documentation. Risk management and insurance, which is something I've spoken about that we need to get a capture on. Conduct a risk analysis for the docks and related operations. Assess current insurance coverage and explore additional coverage options. Recommend insurance policies that provide adequate protection for the town's asset. Reporting and deliverables. There's an interim report. Monthly updates should be made to the town council and mayor. And the final reports, there should be a comprehensive report. I'm giving a deadline of December 31st of 2024. So I know that does not seem like a lot of time, but we will have to need to use that remainder of that time to put something into place. And I know this committee, whatever it will look like, will take on this challenge and meet that goalpost line. We need a financial analysis and projections, an updated vision and objectives that describe outcomes for the character of the docks that are compatible with the expectations of the financial performance. Feasibility of the town's operation of the docks, detailed plans for infrastructure improvement, staffing recommendations, identify funding opportunities, risk management strategies, and insurance coverage operations. Options, excuse me. The procedures, decision-making and documentation and public engagement is extremely important. So we want to make sure that the citizens have an opportunity to engage with this committee in an open discussion. And once again, we will continue to add their progress to our website and keep you posted and updated. Now, like I said, it's been a lot of time putting all that together, but I'm hoping that will kind of give them a good starting point to work with, and I look forward to this committee's report next month. Say yes, committee chair and vice chair. All right, is there any further discussion about steps moving forward? I've monopolized the mics enough.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Two things. In terms of the final report, is the date December 31st, 2024?
Yes,
It's a short window.
I know.
Okay.
I've got some questions or concerns.
Yes, sir.
And- Well,
Okay, hold on.
I just have one other. In the objective and responsibility, attracting more super and mega yachts.
That's a question. It's not saying we want to attract that, but that has been a topic that has been talked about, and people are concerned as to whether that's going to be done, so you need to answer those questions.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, Melvin, basically, I think answering those questions will define the character we want to see. So like the composition of vessels we want to see. Do we want to see the same? Do we want to see more sailboats or more, cabin cruisers or more super and mega yachts? Just going down the flow of those questions is really going to get us closer to what we all want to see, I think.
All right, John?
Commissioner Piccolo, you had a question?
No, I have questions and comments.
Okay.
So we still have the RFP out, and we had multiple concessionaires that bid on the RFP. Are we no longer engaging in that RFP? Is that been pulled? Is that completely over? And we're not moving on to the next best concessionaire on that RFP?
Commissioner LaPiccolo, that was only good for 120 days.
I can't
Okay.
hear you.
When they submitted those proposals, they were only good for, I believe it was 120 days. Is that right, Ari?
So a new RFP will be submitted, correct? I would imagine.
Maybe not.
And will this new board then be responsible for the creation of that RFP or that document? Or will our board be the ones creating that RFP? And also, is there a timeline for this board? Does this board have a certain number of meetings to create the answers to all these questions? Or are we just going to have an unlimited amount of time for this board? Because I think it's important to move this process along. The other question I would have is, how do we prevent the same type of problem from happening again? We engage, all of us voted to engage with Safe Harbor. We all voted for that. We all went
Did
through
not.
the
We all did not, John,
we all signed the letter of intent.
but we did not all vote for it.
The majority of the board signed the letter of intent to engage with that concessionaire, and we all felt, the board, as a board, felt it was a good idea to engage with that concessionaire. We will then probably select the next concessionaire. And how do we prevent, or how do we, if we are going to do this as a closed bidding process, which is how the town does that, how do we prevent the next concessionaire from having the same similar problems from the community? How are we going to vet that as a board and continue to move forward so that we're feeling confident that we've agreed upon something and that we're moving forward with that? And that we have the information and we've done our due diligence and we've done our negotiations to get to the point where we then either agree to move on or we kill the bidding. Because we all have the ability to do that. I just want to make sure that we have those in place, that we're making those decisions together. This does create quite a bit of cost to the town. We did go through all this. We spent a lot of money on attorneys. We spent a lot of money on engineers. There is quite a bit of loss to this process, so the taxpayers did have to pay for that. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I just want to make sure that we don't get into that same situation again, and we're able to vet that person or vet that company wherever we decide, and that we continue to move on and trust the process and continue to move on with this. So anyway, just moving forward, I want to kind of bring that up because I think that's a very important thing to consider so that we don't end up in the same situation that we did this time around.
Yeah, so I think you've got a really valid points there. We definitely don't want to circle back around. And I think some of those monies that we spent with the discussions with Safe Harbor, I think there's some things that came out of those discussions that we can use in the new discussions, so not all is lost there. I think the important piece is looking at what the objectives were for the last RFP, and we weren't able to have, hand in that RFP, but the RFP basically, or the thoughts behind the RFP, even if it's not directly in there, was to maximize super and mega yachts and look at the greatest profit, which is a great way to look at things. If that's the objective, it was lined up nicely with the process. But I'm not sure that is our current objective. So I think really clearly redefining what we are willing to, sacrifice. Are we willing to sacrifice a little bit of an annual lease to maintain some type of character, or looking at the combination of vessels we would like to see, or our viewscape? I think that's the real critical piece. And I think those things need to be very clear in the RFP, and also maybe even define in the RFP what kind of capital contributions we're gonna try to seek, and telling the future concessionaire that, or lessee, that they may have to wait on us a little while for our capital contribution, and maybe construction won't come immediately. But yeah, I think if we do include all those things in the RFP, I think we'll land in a different spot. But I think it's very important that we don't circle back around.
And I think it's important too, to make sure we understand that we are probably going to be dealing with a corporation that has a significant amount of capital, to help fund this. If we are going to go with somebody who has, as we laid out, at least $10 million of capital to back themselves up for this. If we don't, then we may be risking going with someone who's leveraged and who may have trouble or have problems down the road if there's any type of issue. So are we deciding that we are going with a large corporation, or are we deciding we're going with a small player? And I think these are really important things to decide as well, because you can't have both. I think it's going to be extremely difficult to have both. If you have a corporation that has shareholders or is an RET or some sort, they may not. People may think they are beholden to their shareholders. A lot of these REITs, though, are very slow-moving machines. These are the types of things that are in people's mutual funds and retirement funds and so forth, and they have rates of return that are pretty stable. They're not these high rate of return companies that are shooting for the stars. All these companies are out there, and they still may be an option for us. So I don't want to take that off the table, because it does provide the town security in times of storms and damage to the docks and things of that nature. But I think that's also another point of discussion that we need to have, is the type of company that we're gonna, or organization or person that we're targeting to help to run the docks as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of my questions for Ari was, what power do we have through a procurement process? And you don't have to answer that now, but there's certain things in government procurement processes that may limit us, or certain language we want to put in an RFP to get the responses that we want, or how do we justify how we're choosing these? So, yeah. Anyway, no, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, John, one thing that is for certain is, in terms of circling back around, the one component that was missing originally in this play was the citizens of Beaufort, and they will now have a more direct line to us, because they will have representation on this committee. It's going to be more open, which was one of the things that when we was in closed session, quite a few times I mentioned, hey, we got to bring this thing out. We're behind closed doors we're meeting too many times behind closed doors and keeping our citizens out. But now this time, they're going to be more engaged, present more things to us, their thoughts. So circling that wagon is not, to me, it shouldn't be coming back around to that problem with that when we do find a concessionaire, that we end up voting that one down, because this time it's going to be with the citizens of Beaufort involvement, so that when it's picked from this new committee, it's going to be one that is going to be hopefully satisfying everybody within the town limits of Beaufort.
I would agree with Commissioner Cooper. I think that is the large difference this time, that we will have the community input and engagement as we go forward. We know that is vital to this decision-making process, and over the past 6 months, we were not able to have any input from the community, and I think we have seen the result. And so now we will have a committee that is going to help us make this decision instead of us making it by ourselves. So I agree with Commissioner Cooper.
Now, I think there was a question for you, Ari, you didn't get a chance to answer.
Commissioner
Gilligan had a
Gilligan's
question about procurement and how to structure RFP.
Yes, ma'am. There's no specific statutory process for what we've done to date. I mean, there are specific bidding requirements for construction projects and for various goods and services, but there's not a statutory blueprint to go out, and this is what you have to do statutorily to get a concessionaire. The town, when the RFPs went out, we really borrowed from some of those, processes, if you will. Our town engineer at the time, I've called him the master of the bid and RFP process. He really had some great input. He incorporated this from when we did the utility lines, or this when we hired an engineer. So it was very much starting with a blank sheet of paper. And that may be what the committee ultimately recommends to do and the board decides to do, but we have a free hand legally to design it the way we would like it designed. I think there are some best practices when we get there if we get there, to keep any proposals we receive competitive. And that was a driving factor behind the closed sessions and the confidentiality that have been at issue. So we can revisit all those topics when we get there. Commissioner LaPiccolo's comment on the current RFP process, I understood Monday night that the action was to terminate everything, including the pending proposals in that particular process. And if that's not what the board intended, we probably need to hear that today, but that's how I understood the action. If we have time later in the meeting, if that was the board's intent, that'll drive the release of public records and some other things that again, if time allows, I had asked the mayor to discuss. So, but we'll punt that until the board's ready to talk about it.
Okay.
Did I answer your question, Commissioner Gilligan?
You did. I'm sorry.
And both of y'all kind of?
Yeah, so I didn't, being a state employee, when I try to contract with a company, it's a nightmare. I can't, get what I really want all the time, so it's good to hear we might have some more flexibility.
Yeah, we've got a lot of flexibility.
Okay.
There are, at the end of the process, we're dealing with town real estate, so there's some statutory things we will have to do, but how we go about the process, how we go about the selection, the criteria that we set, that's a blank slate for the town to determine. So no rigid, public sector bidding requirements like you would have if you were, building a building or, installing utilities or whatever. There's no process like that maps it out.
Okay, thank you.
Any further comments?
I'll make one comment. I'm very comfortable where we are, but I think that we need to, as a board, if you would, I think we need to recognize the importance now to support this effort and to solely look in the windshield and not look in the mirror for a while. And I would ask our board to think about that on a personal basis, and I'd ask our community to look at it on that basis. I'd ask the people in the audience to look at it on that basis, because that's where we are. And I look forward to hearing what any suggestions are. We said that last night, as individually, we said that last night. And I am very comfortable not looking in my rearview mirror. I think we need to look forward and figure out what's the best deal for Beaufort. And the committee's got a hell of a challenge in front of them.
Yes, they do.
And I think the time is reasonable. I think it's plenty of time. I hope they succeed. But let's focus on doing what's best for Beaufort and look forward, not in our review mirror, especially on this table, at this table. I don't hold anything behind at all. Let's find a solution. Solutions are what we need.
Well, I think it's true that we need to kind of come to a direction at some point. When you have a board that was prior to this board make a decision to look at a particular direction and it carries over to this new board that has a little bit of different direction that they want to take, I think we have exercised going through that enough to say that this might not be a fit for this particular board. So that's why hitting that, as we call it, maybe is not a reset button, it's just different viewing of the same topic, and doing it in a different manner. And you've got some new leadership here, and we still have community citizen input that we still need to balance within those decisions. So starting with a committee, not necessarily bringing back the Harbor and Waterways Committee, which I believe their work stands the test of time. But to be able to get this committee to focus on what we hear is now extremely important to our commissioners and to our citizens in the future of the waterfront. And that's where I wanted to be able to start with creating this subcommittee, is to be able to start that conversation over again. And we have got to be laser focused about what our ask is. And then how can we actually fund it and where do we go from here? I think that conversation with this committee will include, you may find out that when I spoke about staffing, you may find out you need to contact a company to manage the docks. I don't know, just putting that out there as a summation. And that's where your RFPs will come in. But at least you will know that the citizens are on board with that, right? So that's where the direction is. So when the documents and all the reports come out of this committee, we get a better direction of what the community really wants so that we can proceed from there. So I encourage you to participate, come to the meetings. I'm so excited to have Commissioner Spiegler and Commissioner Gillikin serve on this board. I include all of the other commissioners to be as engaged as possible to help support this, as Commissioner Oliver said. I'm an ex officio on all boards, and whatever it is that you need for me to do, I definitely will be available. I might be able to go home early tonight. I've been out since 9:30 every night this week. So I'm just hoping that this new fresh direction gives us that general purpose of what we want to see out there and how we go about doing it. And this board is amazing. The community had just given us board praises and know how hard it is to be doing what we are doing, but we do it because we love Beaufort. Now, I thought this is going to be a short meeting. Once again, we're repurposing a meeting. I'm glad it didn't turn out to be what it initially turned out to be. But as I've been having some conversations with the attorney, once again, when I mentioned we want to clean up things and start with an open book, clean slate, and everything's settled. So I wanted to leave a little time for the attorney if he had anything he wishes to discuss and disclose, or any action you feel we need to make in order to make your job better.
Well, Mayor, since we have until 12:30, I got a lot of time.
You do not have until 12.
Gonna give me at least 5 minutes.
That's a hard stop. You can take your time, Miller. We pay him by the word, so we need to.
Yes, you do. I'll give a little bit of background, Mayor and Commissioners. When the RFP process was started, the town deemed this an economic development matter. And in turn, that allowed the town to negotiate in confidence. There are closed session statutes that support that. There are exceptions to the public records statute that support that, and it's crystal clear. And it's a pretty standard operating procedure for local governments that are engaged in this type of project that we've been working on. I fully acknowledge that we're going possibly in a different direction now, but that was the basis for the closed sessions, and that was the basis for the confidentiality on the records. And the practical issue was when you were negotiating with various proposals, you know, you want confidentiality, because if the proposers know the other proposals, you know, they can adjust their proposal or pull out or change whatever. And it's very akin to a sealed bid process. I mean, it's not the same thing, but that was a practical thought of your management team, and quite frankly was my advice last year as we started down this road. So that said, if the RFP process we've engaged in is concluded, and I believe it to be, but we might need to confirm that on the record, both the practical and statutory reasons for that confidentiality goes away. And again, that's crystal clear in the public records statute. And what that means is that all the documents are fair game. The closed session minutes will be fair game. And not only do I think that's what the statute requires, I think that's appropriate under the circumstances based on the board's decision. So, you know, we've got some public records requests out there that we have deferred and denied. Again, because the statute says you no longer need confidentiality when the deal is finalized or terminated, and then you've got to release the records within 25 days. So I wanted to point that out to the town, and primarily for the reason that Commissioner LaPiccolo brought up. If there is a desire to pivot to some of the other proposals that we have received, again, as Commissioner Spiegler said, even assuming that they're, you know, still open, then you're back in the world of wanting to maintain that confidentiality. So I thought it would be helpful for the public to understand that background. I know there's been a lot of discussion about closed sessions and not producing records. And at the end of the day, let the board decide what the board wants done. If the RFP process is concluded and over and done with, I would ask for board action authorizing your staff to, you know, release the documents from the confidentiality, and also have a future action item on an agenda to unseal the closed session minutes. We can't do that today, actually unseal them, because they're still in process. We don't have all of them done yet, but I could see doing it perhaps by the work session or the next regular meeting. This advice might normally be something in closed session, but under the circumstances, I think it's helpful for everybody to hear it from the proverbial horse's mouth, if you will.
So are you saying that, do we need to take some action at the next meeting on the present RFP so that it would allow the records to be public?
Commissioner, my understanding of Monday night's action was that the RFP process is over and terminated. Not only the negotiations with the leading company, but all of it. And I'll look to Commissioner Gillikin if that understanding is incorrect.
I didn't specifically mention the RFP. I guess I'm curious about the 120-day expiration date. Was we've already passed that?
Well, I mean, at this point, what you would have to do is, if you wanted to pivot to the next best offer, you'd have to go back to the company and ask, you know, is this still on the table, or are you still willing to negotiate based on your proposal? And if the answer is yes, then I think we can take it and run with it. And if the answer is no, then do you keep going down the list? So
I would think, Commissioner Gillikin, that your point earlier in this meeting that the RFP may have not addressed the objectives that we really want to address. And from reading very carefully all of the proposals that were submitted by the bidders, I think that even if we want to negotiate with some of the other bidders, we would want them to rewrite the proposal because we may have different objectives now, even if we like those same companies. So I would suggest that that the entire RFP is terminated, the entire process.
Yeah, I understand that. I guess my only concern, I definitely would like a new RFP process, but my only concern would be the bidders in the new RFP process will see the documents from the old one, and then we could potentially be penalized for that in annual lease income.
That's a
Or is
fact.
that not a real risk?
That's a fact. I mean, that's a fact. And is there, from your review, is there anything in any of the proposals, excluding the one that we entered into an LOI with, is there anything in their proposals that in any way restricts whether we can make it public?
No, sir.
Thank
I don't
you.
believe so. I mean, I think that if the RFP process is concluded, really, we don't have any discretion to hold back those proposals at this point. And that's a very good observation, Commissioner, and that was the exact reason for the confidentiality. Because if you have a leading proposer that's going to pay X in rent, and then they see the next one's going to pay Y in rent, which is less, they're gonna negotiate down the process. So, that's just something we'll have to deal with going forward. It may not be a significant issue, because I think the first RFP was to maximize the economic benefit. And now that will be an element, but not the primary element, so we might be looking at a substantially different set of proposals and process.
And economics?
And economics, but yes, could some of these companies look at the other RFPs and base a next proposal on that or a lesser number? Absolutely, that could happen.
Well, once again, it would be great to have a lot of this stuff cleaned up and open so that we can start with a clean slate moving forward. But it's definitely up to the discretion of the board. It would be great to have that question answered as if we're going to continue with looking at other bidders or just cease the RFP process as we stand. That will allow for us to have documents open and released as, requested, and take care of that situation so we no longer have these things blocking us moving forward. The goal is just to really open things up so that we have nothing hiccups, nobody saying that we haven't said anything or done anything. I want it to be smooth moving forward so that we can have success at the end of this. But that's totally up to the discretion of the board.
So, Mayor, and Board, since this was a recess meeting, so, and we're actually now back in, the meeting that originated from, on Monday, can we just, make a motion in terms of fully making sure that on the safety end of things that we, terminate the present RFP?
Yes, you can make a motion during this meeting and vote on it.
Okay.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Before we move forward. If we initiate a new RFP process, does that effectively cancel the old one?
May I weigh in on this,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor? From an administrative vantage point, it would be extremely helpful at this juncture if you rejected all of the submitted RFPs. Because we're gonna be the ones fielding the questions, and we're gonna turn to our town attorney, and we're gonna be wading through, well, I already have a proposal in, is that one's, be a lot cleaner if we start clean. And to the point of, yes, there'll be information out there, and maybe your bids will be lower, but also, think a little wider. I'm submitting the next go-around, and I know what it took to be the first firm last time. So why am I gonna go lower? So the bar has been set out there financially, and regardless of the parameters, those that respond will know what it took to get in this room to negotiate. So, don't think it's necessarily gonna bring less to the table for you. The process will be the process, and we'll see how it shakes out. But, from my vantage point, for these months, and from Elizabeth's and from Mary moving forward, be a lot cleaner if we were dealing with a clean slate.
So, well, I'd like to make a motion that we terminate all RFPs related to this past negotiations. So,
And Commissioner Cooper, if I may,
sure.
that sounds like a two-part motion to me. You're moving to terminate the RFP process and to reject all proposals made in that process.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, if that's gonna clean it up.
That's what I heard him say.
That's why we have an attorney.
Yeah, and just for, again, to reiterate, if that action is adopted by the board, then we will pivot and honor the public records request. We'll work on unsealing the closed session minutes. On the public records request, these proposals are huge. We have several of them only in hard copy. We don't have all of them electronically. I think the plan will be for your staff to get those uploaded electronically so they're more easily shared. I know staff will prioritize this, but I don't want anybody going to town hall after this meeting expecting copies to be available. I don't know how long it'll take, but I think we're talking a day or two or something like that, so.
For those individuals who have requested those, you can just easily email them and say they are ready for review when you get an opportunity to get those things done. That might be a little easier for those who specifically have asked for those records. So then moving forward, if anybody continues to ask for records, then they would be able to have them a little bit easier. So give staff time to get those uploaded, and then those who've already made those requests, we know who you are. We could go ahead and get those to you and notify you when they are ready. How's that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I have a question on that.
Yes, sir.
Does electronic dissemination of materials meet the requirements of a FOIA request?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And I'll go one better. It is not a requirement of the law and the statutes that we create an electronic record. The statutes say that you are entitled to inspect the public records, and you may request a copy, which may incur a fee. That's the legal obligation. Now, this board and your staff has always been wonderful trying to accommodate citizens by creating electronic copies, by making copies for free, and I would expect that to continue. From my vantage point in dealing with these records, your staff has gone above and beyond trying to get citizens what the citizens want. So this is in line with that. It's not anything the statute requires, but it's something that your staff has suggested for the benefit of the citizens and the ease of the citizens. So I'm glad I'm getting paid by the word.
I know, I counted.
Yeah, I could have just said yes, right?
Okay. All right, so we have a clean motion on the table. Elizabeth, do you have both parts of that motion?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, very good. Before I call for the questions, is there any deliberation about the motion? All righty. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Thank you very much. And Ari, did you want to share anything else with the board?
Mayor, I think I've talked enough. I think I've covered everything I needed.
We're getting our money's worth. Nothing
to
about a
cover.
general assembly or anything of that nature. You mentioned that to me.
Well, I would respectfully suggest to the new committee chair and vice chair to consider approaching the General Assembly with a special appropriation request. There is a A lot of money coming out of Raleigh for a lot of local projects. Some of your brother and sister local governments have been appropriated substantial sums for projects that involve the military, but also that involve economic development. The General Assembly really likes that phrase. I'll be glad to share some thoughts offline, but it may be that the town engages a lobbyist to help with that process. And there's several very good ones that have obtained a whole lot of money for this area. And I don't know how that scheduling lines up with everything, but I think that's something the committee should look at, because you don't have to pay it back, right? You don't have to write a grant application. I mean, you just have to convince your local legislative delegation and get them to convince whatever committees are involved. So I would put that one on your punch list. At least I would suggest you do that. So.
Thank you for that. I thought that was a great suggestion when we talked on the phone, and thank you for sharing the details with the board. Does anybody else have anything further to add? We've got a lot
Yes.
in a short period of time. Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Cooper?
In your infrastructure assessment,
Yes, sir.
I would like to maybe propose also to Commissioner Spiegler and Commissioner Gilligan. One of the things that may not have, come up in discussion was behind closed doors, but one of the things that was foremost in me is that, and I always was saying, I'm not a boater, but I do visit the waterfront. But there's still a good deal of our citizens who do not come down on the waterfront for various reasons. So, but again, our waterfront is a great asset for us, and being able to have that water in front of us, as well as Rachel Carson Preserve also looking over there and being able to see the horses. I would like maybe for them to maybe look at with Graydon Park, maybe the possibility, and I've spoken with Rachel, that we include some little structures or whatever in terms of a park asset, to where that the grandparents or the parents can bring their kids down. The kids can be able to play on various structures, and the parents and grandparents can still enjoy being down on the water and looking out at the water or the horses or Rachel Carson. But make it family friendly, not only for the citizens of Beaufort, but also for the visitor who may be waiting to get on the various ferries, and the kids could be having something to play on, and parents are not sitting there while the kids are running up down the boardwalk, Johnny, get over here, Johnny, get over,
What's wrong with Johnny?
Johnny play rough. But something of that nature. So, just throwing it out there. 'Cause a lot of our citizens sometimes just don't feel like downtown Beaufort is for them, and they live here in the town of Beaufort. But if there's anything that we could add to our downtown that also is outside of docks and boats, I think would be also a plus for the community.
That's a great idea. We also have the 611 Stevens property that, I know this is going to be a tall ask, even adding this to the committee, but it's a clean slate. And as I mentioned at the meeting, we've got a piece of the waterfront that we can make it our own. And it could be a nice place to provide a park or some services for families to go and enjoy, so that little Johnny doesn't run out in the street. Johnny sounds bad, but but for little Johnny to play, and I'm talking year round, not just for visitors, but for our locals. When things get changed around here, it's not because of the visitors, it's because the locals have to live here. When things get improved, it's not because we're trying to attract tourism, it's because we want you to continue to live here. And that's a really great suggestion.
Yeah.
Madam Chair? Were you able to capture that?
Yes, Commissioner Cooper, I think that's a wonderful example. As you all know, I have a small child, 1.5-year-old, and on vacation a few weeks ago up actually in the Great Lakes in Put-in Bay, they have a wonderful waterfront park there, multiple playgrounds, multiple equipment for kids, and I was thinking the same thing. How cool would it be to have more family-friendly options on our downtown waterfront? So Commissioner Cooper, I appreciate you bringing that up, and I hope we can incorporate that.
Not a problem, thank you.
Thank you. All right, anything else?
That's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Commissioner Piccolo?
No, I think it's a good idea that we're opening this all up and releasing all this information to the town. I think hopefully all the concerned citizens look into that and they can see the deliberations and the thought process and all the hard work that went into that, and that if we do decide that we want to do the next RFP and have a closed session, that maybe there'll be that degree of trust that we really are doing this in the best interest of the community.
Okay.
So that's all.
Thank you. Commissioner Gilligan?
No comment.
Thank you. Commissioner Cooper, any further things to add?
No, ma'am.
All right. Commissioner Oliver?
I move to adjourn.
Well, I've got to talk to Commissioner Spiegler first.
No comments.
Thank you. All right, we've got a motion to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. And thank you for coming out. I love to see